Good morning, everyone. All right. Well, good morning, Councillor Gatsis. Are you joining us via the phone?
I am. Good morning, Governor. Good morning, Councillor.
Good morning. Now, Councillor Gatsis, technically, you have to state your full name, where you are, and if anyone is with you, and that includes anyone that may be within a quarter mile each way on the beach.
Well, I wish I could tell you I'm on the beach, but I'm not on the beach. Theodore Jackson, I'm in my room and I'm alone.
I'm sure the beach is in your future, though. I'm sure we're going to be out there. Well, thank you very much. I know you're kind of off-site, but it's great to be able to have you join us. So what we'll do is, just before we get started, after we do each vote, Councillor Gatsis, I'll just come back to you and just ask you to confirm a yeas or identify any nay votes that you may have after each block of voting that we do.
All right, Governor.
And then if you have any questions, or just like you were here, just feel free to jump right in and speak up and let us know if there's any questions that the commissioners can answer for you. Well, welcome everybody.
Just wait it.
So thank you everyone for joining us. We have a whole bunch of stuff to get to, and as everyone knows, we usually kick things off. We have the Salem High School Chorus joining us today. We have a proclamation and a commendation for some folks that we want to recognize as well before we get off with our official business. But we had a beautiful breakfast meeting this morning over at the State Library with some of our New Hampshire heroes, like members of the New Hampshire Veterans Home. It was really awesome to have Kim and the whole team come down there, and I see Kim, Commandant, you're here. Thank you so much for coming down and just letting us have a whole discussion about the goings-on up at the Veterans Home. It's just a phenomenal facility. Need more nurses, like everybody else. We definitely need more nurses to fill more beds. But your team up there has been doing a fantastic job, so thank you for that. But with that, I'm going to kick it over to Councillor Stevens.
Good morning, everyone. Could we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And justice for all.
Good morning, everyone. In honor of Black History Month, I will be reading a poem by Maya Angelou, an American author, poet, civil rights activist, and recipient of the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2011. I know why the caged bird sings. A free bird leaps on the back of the wind and floats downstream, till the current ends and dips his wing in the orange sun's rays, and dares to claim the sky. But a bird that stalks down his narrow cage can seldom see through the bars of rage. His wings are clipped and his feet are tied, so he opens his throat to sing. The caged bird sings with the fearful trill of things unknown, but longed for still, and his tune is heard on the distant hill, for the caged bird sings of freedom. The free bird thinks of another breeze, and the trade wind soft through the sighing trees, and the fat worms waiting on a dawn-bright lawn, and he names the sky his own. The caged bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown, but longed for still, and his tune is heard on the distant hill, for the caged bird sings of freedom. So I'm honored to introduce members of the Select Salem High School Chorus, and I'm going to go through each of their names. They'll be singing two songs for us today. The national anthem, God Bless the USA, and the storm is passing over. This is a very talented group. Many of you have been here before. Salem High School is probably the top performing arts program in the state. They performed this season at Disney Springs and Disney World to one of the largest crowds of the year. 7 members of the ensemble are ranked singers in the state as classical and and Jazz All-State members this year. So welcome. We have Adriana Alaga, Emily Eloise, Karen Cisneros, Joanna Flaherty, Olivia Hildebrandt, Yali Irelander, Elizabeth Jackson, Sean James, Javius Jaquin, Jocelyn Ortiz, Liliana Ortiz, Grace Quimby, Laura Raymond, Connor St. Hilaire, Kyle Tu, Olivia Wanzo, and Lily Ann Wilton. And they are accompanied by their director, Julia Harash, and I'll turn it over at this point. Thanks for being here, guys.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so brightly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, with the stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the
I'm tall, we're not getting to that. That was great.
All right, everyone right here in 3, 2, 1. One more for me. Thank you. One more for Kevin. Great, thank you all.
Thank you.
You guys, probably know. But anyway.
Shut it off
We'll do Bill, we'll do Bill in a second. We'll do Bill.
Appreciate it.
Oh, he's just, so, that's it. We have 3 sets of presidents today, right? You were not set of presidents, were you?
No.
You were not set of presidents, were you? Okay.
Yeah, you replaced me as a-
Oh, there you go. We got 3. It's like par for the course.
Hey, stand up there, I can take you.
Okay, where's Chuck? Oh, he's back there, okay, sorry. All right, so, as everybody knows, we always like to kind of remind ourselves what community is all about, even here at the State House. We like to accentuate and really honor some folks that do just a lot for their communities, and whether it's folks that have been up here at the State House before, nonprofits, or different organizations, or individuals that always kind of stand up from the crowd. So there's one individual we want to recognize today. I think we were supposed to do it last year, and it just couldn't happen for various reasons. But we were able to bring him up here today, and that is none other, and I'm going to ask him to come up with, than the illustrious former Senate President, Bill Bartlett. So come on up, Bill. I just realized as the council today, we're almost outnumbered as we have 3 former Senate presidents with us. One being now Councilor Gattis, your peer. We have former Senate President Chuck Morse with us as well. Thanks for joining us. Feeling good?
Well, I felt so.
You look good, man. Good to see you. Good to see you. Does anyone else want to join us up here? Yeah, I'm going to make you. Chuck, come on up. Come on. Great. And Councilor Stevens, come on up. Oh, hey, the family came. Awesome. Well, so a lot of you have, what years were you actually there? You had 5 terms. in the Senate. 2 in the Senate, yeah, 5 total. 2 in the Senate President. What year was that?
I wish I had done that 60, but after,
Well, right after my dad. Good luck with that.
all right, it was a pleasure.
Yeah.
Chair, so we can-
Oh, yes, sorry. So, for those of you who don't know, again, a lot of us know Bill as being a former state senator, former Senate president, but then you had all the other different organizations that he's been involved in. I was going through the list. You were the fire chief? Is that true? Holy cow. I thought you were kidding when you told me that. But everything from being a fire chief and the Lions Club and everything he's done in Kingston and his community, always out there. And I guess that really kind of exemplifies the New Hampshire spirit, which I think is terrific. And thanks, obviously a big thanks to Councilor Stevens for, again, making this happen and dragging you up here, whether it was against your will or not, so that we can honor you and to say thank you. Everything you've done for Pease, the Pease Development Authority, the years you spent there, which was absolutely integral. For those who don't know, I mean, the Pease Development Authority became a model for the rest of the country when they looked at base closures and redevelopment and opportunities and how to kind of match the economic development with a lot of these technically closed sites, but making sure it was something prosperous, right, for the entire region.
No success in the country.
Yeah, it's just an unbelievable model, an unbelievable model. Chuck, you want to add anything? I don't know.
No, I just want the public to know I admire Bill so much that I follow him around wherever he goes. But the list of Senate presidents is getting slimmer, and he's certainly been one that's led me through everything I've done up here, and I appreciate everything, Bill.
I'd like to add, Senate President Bartlett was the go-to guy when an agency was in a downward spiral and needed to be overhauled. Regardless of the sector, he always stepped in and got the job done. Thank you, Bill.
And I won't follow in those footsteps.
It's New Hampshire. You never know what tomorrow's going to bring, or what you're going to get pulled into. So, a commendation recognizing William Bartlett, whereas William Bartlett has extensive experience serving in government, serving as State Senate President and the Commissioner of the Department of Resources and Economic Development. And whereas he served in the New Hampshire State Senate for 5 terms, the last 2 as Senate President, and he's known for bringing people from across the aisle together to find solutions. Whereas Bill Bartlett has been committed to leadership in his profession on a local and statewide level as a New Hampshire real estate and insurance agent, government relations professional, and small businessman. And whereas Bill is active in his Kingston community, serving as Little League coach for the Kingston Red Sox, as a member of the Lions Club, as fire chief, and he was one of the first emergency medical technicians in New Hampshire. And whereas Bill is admired for his high ethical standards, candor, and his dedication to the Granite State, his hometown, and his family, now therefore I, Christopher T. Sununu, Governor of the State of New Hampshire, do hereby commend William Bartlett for his service to the Granite State and wish him all the best. Thank you so much. You're golden. All right. We'll bring the council up.
All right, everyone right here for me. And 3, 2, 1. One more. Start it down to Kevin for me. Great, thank you.
And I just want to add a bit of information. When I first sat down for Bill, it was supposed to be a 15-minute meeting. It turned out to be an hour and a half. And he shared with me his competitive streak, and that was racing the governor's father to the tolls. You were in a Fiat, and I think he was in a turbocharged Suburban with 8 kids. But you guys did your race. You did drag race to the tolls, right?
He had to go down one way, and I had to go the other way. And I only had a little 3-hour. But he was a pleasure. And I'd like to thank all the people who worked for me for the years, because I don't get this done without you all. And it's really been a pleasure for doing this all these years. And every time we had a problem, the people who were state employees stepped up and solved the problem. And we're fortunate to have such great state employees to do this round. I had 7 agencies, and they all were great.
Thank you. Okay, we have one more proclamation to make. It's a little geeky, a little nerdy, but one of my favorites. It is National Engineers Week, and we're celebrating New Hampshire Engineers Week in particular. And who better to celebrate New Hampshire Engineers Week than New Hampshire's current and future engineers? So I'm going to have the folks from DOT and some of the students from Milford High School come up to join us. These are the students that won the DOT bridge building competition, basically, which is always pretty exciting. So come on up. Hey, how are you? Good to see you. Hey, good to see you. Hey, how are you? Nice to see you. Good morning. Good morning. Good to see you. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. How are you? Good to see you. Thanks for coming. Good morning. Hey, good to see you.
Take care of yourself.
So I'm gonna like Bill, I'm your commissioner at I'm gonna kick it over to you to talk a little bit about DOT's involvement, and then maybe I'll let you pass it over to the folks, the kids at Milford, to talk about the actual competition.
Yeah, thank you. We have several folks here. So we were ASHTO, our national organization. It's one thing we've supported this bridge building competition through the acronym known as TRACK here for a long time. There are several folks in the department, a couple of folks from Bridge Society, Melissa Atherton and Ron Kleiner, who worked with through it, and Krista Robichaud from our HR, who's done a great job with the outreach of our high school. So Krista, why don't you give a little bit of an overview of the program and the outreach and the folks here from Milford who won the competition.
So Bill Sapien is our civil engineer that works with the instructors. Frank is their teacher, and so Milford is one of the schools that competed, but we had several schools that competed. Ron Kleiner also works with Concord High School, and so the students build these popsicle stick bridges, and we compete. The competition was on 15th of November, and let's see here. Joshua, that is for you, and Corey, that's for you. And then Frank, did you want to say anything about the program?
We really appreciate the good work that the Department of Transportation offers us and opportunities where students can challenge their minds and apply their skills as junior or apprentice engineers. And we really appreciate this, especially because it's Engineering Week, but it's also CE month. We have 27 wonderful centers that support programs and opportunities like this for students.
So I have to ask, is it about structural stability? Like, what's the contest? Is it like, are we piling on weights until the bridge breaks, and yours was the last one that didn't break? Like, how does it work?
Yeah, you wait up until they break, and whichever one holds on most weight, and there's also a component of the weight of the bridge, so the most weight per weight of the bridge.
And do they limit the number of popsicle sticks you can use? What are the rules there?
There's a total weight.
A total weight limit. Okay, so you can use as many popsicle sticks and as much. Is there a certain type of glue you have to use? You just hot glue. That's all you're allowed. Interesting.
And so just to point it out, Ron mentioned that we weigh the bridge and then we break the bridge and record their weight.
Okay.
Their winning bridge weighed 1.6 pounds and it held 220 pounds. So no, that's the one that they built broke and wasn't really. Let me give you the scale of what the requirements are. But the loading apparatus also allows them to walk on a platform that will transfer their weight to their bridge. So they're actually loading the bridge themselves. So we're not hanging weight, we're hanging their weight on it, essentially. So
that's kind of neat. And you guys looking to be engineers? Not put me on the spot. We can always use more. You can lead to great things, I'm just saying. Here we go. It's really effective. It's really effective. Well, this is absolutely fantastic. Here, I'm going to get that before I break it. I'm going to read that.
It's already broken.
Okay.
If I could just have an award, this is a school. So this is a trophy that we keep every year. The winning school gets added to the trophy. So their names are on here. The 2022 Milford High School. Michael Barber could not be here, so we have Joshua LaPointe and Corey Tompkins, and their names are forever immortalized on our trophy. Congratulations, guys. We don't talk about that.
Oh, so
That's true.
I have to know, Concord typically has won, I think, many years in a row. 3 or 4 in a row. And they do great, that's wonderful. So it's nice to see that Milford won. I'm sure Concord will be done for you next year. So we do have our proclamation recognizing New Hampshire Engineers Week, February 19th to the 25th, 2023. Whereas engineers serve our state and our nation by transforming ideas into reality in creating products, services, and technologies that better serve our citizens and solve problems. And whereas engineers allow our society to thrive by building sound roads and bridges, cleaning our drinking water, and allowing us to communicate with people all around the world. And whereas engineers have contributed to New Hampshire's high quality of life, helping to revolutionize the use of natural resources, telecommunications, transportation, and the conservation of our environment. And whereas the innovative spirit of New Hampshire's engineers and those of our nation have led to countless significant developments throughout history, and whereas the National Society of Professional Engineers, together with the Joint Committee representing all of the New Hampshire engineering societies, celebrates Engineering Week between February 19th to the 25th, 2023. Now, therefore, I, Christopher T. Sununu, Governor of the State of New Hampshire, do hereby proclaim February 19th through 25th, 2023 as New Hampshire Engineers Week in the State of New Hampshire, and call this to the attention of all of its citizens. Thank you guys so much. We're all getting tight. Bridge up front. Wait, let's get the council up here. Sorry. Let's get the executive council up.
This one, what are you going to do next? They're being,
You messed up.
they're being a great job today.
All right, everyone right here for me in 3, 2, 1. One more. Let's do one more. Perfect. Thank you.
Great. You guys, congratulations. Appreciate it. Thank you for coming. Oh, no, that's you. Oh, no, hold it. Dean, where's Dean? Dean? So, I know we don't have council hands.
So I'd like to take this around and then I will get signed back, everyone sign it, and I'll mail it to you.
Okay, great. Okay, great. I'll get that. There you go. All right, we'll send you another one. There you go. Thanks, guys. Good to see you. Hey, great job. Of course, yeah. Congratulations. Okay. Okay, so moving forward, I will officially call this meeting of the Governor and Executive Council to order. I've got to follow the script here a little bit. I'll begin by asking for a motion to approve the meeting minutes from February 8th, 2023. Any discussion on the February 8th meeting minutes? Councilor Warmington. And we'll do the January 18th one separately, just as an FYI. Okay.
We have some new rules regarding minutes and voting that I think that we need to advise the public about. In reviewing the minutes of a prior meeting in preparation for a council meeting, it came to my attention that Councilor Wheeler was recorded as voting no on several items. However, at the time of the meeting, I had heard no opposition on those items. I pointed out what I thought was an error to the Secretary of State, but was advised that Councilor Wheeler often hands the Secretary of State a list of items for which he wants his no votes to be recorded in the minutes, while staying silent at the time the vote is taken. Councilor Wheeler confirmed with me
that on some items he remains silent during the voice vote, but then submits his opposition to the item in writing after the meeting. The Secretary of State records these after-the-fact silent votes in the minutes, just as if Councilor Wheeler had voted no at the time the vote was taken. Having previously reviewed the Manual of Procedures governing Executive Council actions, I recall that the Manual of Procedures had specific language addressing this matter. It states that if councilors present at a meeting choose to remain silent or otherwise abstain from voting, their silence or abstention will be taken as acquiescence or concurrence in the action taken by a majority of the votes cast. The Manual of Procedures cites a New Hampshire Supreme Court opinion of the Justices, which also states that silence is acquiescence. Since it appeared to me that Councilor Wheeler's practice is in direct conflict with the Manual of Procedures and the Supreme Court opinion, and because I believe strongly in transparency and that the public who comes to this meeting has a right to know how all of the councilors have voted, I raised the issue with Councilor Wheeler, the Governor, and the Attorney General. The Attorney General has concluded that there is no legal impediment to Councilor Wheeler or other councilors from continuing this practice. I believe that the public has a right to know how all councilors voted. I think that the Executive Council is the hallmark of transparency. We talk about it all the time, that it is the most transparent in the country. The Council exists to bring transparency to our government. It is directly contrary to the public interest to allow councilors to hide their votes from the public. That said, if councilors are allowed to vote in writing while remaining silent, the public has a right to understand the rules governing that conduct, and therefore I have a few questions for the Attorney General regarding the matter.
Sure, I imagine so. So, okay, the Attorney General will come up and talk about his review.
My first question is, how long after a council meeting adjourns does the councilor have to record their vote?
So I think to answer that question, it's important to just give a little background on why we concluded what we did. So the question was whether the practice of a councilor recording their votes for certain voice votes at the end of the meeting, as opposed to vocalizing their vote at the time it was called by the chair, is permissible under the law. Or another way to think of it is there something in the law that doesn't permit that? There's a couple questions that were important to answer there. The first is whether the MOP prohibits that practice. There's a couple provisions in the MOP that are important. The first is the provision that you cited, Counselor, which comes from a Supreme Court case in 1953, that says silence or otherwise abstaining will be taken as concurring with the majority of the council. That case wasn't meant to address what silence means or what abstaining means or how long you have to record your vote. That case was addressing what the impact was if you don't vote at all. And that decision was, kind of the language of that decision was taken and put directly into the general section of the MOP at the beginning of the MOP 150. There's another provision in the MOP that says current practices or ongoing practices are considered to be permissible unless and until altered by the governor and council. Our discussions with Councilor Wheeler indicate that this practice of waiting until the end of the meeting to record a vote for certain voice votes has been ongoing for at least 20 plus years. So I think that provision of the MOP that talks about an ongoing practice staying permissible until otherwise altered applies. It's also important to look at the practice of the state Senate. The state Senate has for a long time had a practice of allowing senators to record their votes on a voice vote up to 2 business days after the vote has taken place. The rule that allows that has only been in place for a few years, we're told. That practice has been long-standing even before the rule that specifically allowed it. So based on that, my conclusion was that the MOP does not prohibit this practice. The governor and council could decide to amend the MOP to specifically prohibit that practice or specify that you have to vote at the time the vote is called, but the governor and council hasn't done that up till now. The other question we looked at is whether 91A prohibits that practice, and there's nothing in 91A that would prohibit that. 91A prohibits secret ballots in an open meeting, but it doesn't prohibit recording the vote at the end of the meeting and having that vote be recorded. So to answer your question, how long? again, I think what's important here is what the longstanding practice has been. My understanding is the practice is for Councilor Wheeler, and maybe other councilors before him, but Councilor Wheeler to turn in those recorded votes at the end of the meeting. So I would say it needs to happen at the end of the meeting. If you started to wait until hours, days after, it would no longer be consistent with any longstanding practice, and I think you wouldn't have that provision in the MOP that allows longstanding practices to continue until change to apply.
My understanding is the practice is after the meeting is adjourned, that's when this has been happening.
Yep. Right after the meeting is adjourned.
And that's, so how long do we have to change our votes?
I would say you just would have to stay consistent with current practice. I don't think it's a line you draw minute by minute. If you got so far that it started to seem it was inconsistent with the ongoing practice, then that would be too long.
So what's the actual vote count? So we had an instance, for instance, where I voted no on something, and the rest of the council apparently voted yes. Councilor Wheeler later voted no. Is that a 4-1 vote? Is that a 3-2 vote? What's the official vote on that item?
I would say the official vote is if there would be two, if one had been vocalized at the time of the vote and another recorded at the end, there would be two no votes.
And just to be clear, at the end, this is still a silent vote. It's a passing of a piece of paper from the councilor to the Secretary of State. There's no voicing of the recorded vote.
It's not voiced, it's recorded in the minutes, so I wouldn't necessarily say that's silent because there's a permanent record.
Right. I would say it's silent, and I'll disagree with you on that, but my interest is really in transparency and that the public gets to hear how their councilors vote. So if the governor announces that it was a unanimous vote, as he sometimes does after a vote, and the councilor still remains silent, is that considered acquiescence, or can he still record a different vote after the fact?
My understanding is the practice includes sometimes still recording a no vote at the end, even if it's announced the vote is unanimous, so I think that's a principle.
Okay, now the paper that Councilor Wheeler hands to the Secretary of State's office, is that a public record?
Yes.
When does the public get access to that record?
I would say once it's given to the Secretary of State.
Does it have to go through a right to know request to get access to the record, or is it immediately available? In other words, just how long does the public have to wait to know how Councilor Wheeler has voted?
Well, once it becomes a public record, if there is a 91A request, you've got to make a record available immediately if it's immediately available. So I would say it's available to the public immediately. You've got to make a 91A request so you know that a request has been made, but because it's immediately available, it will be available as soon as the Secretary of State has a chance to make a copy of it and provide it, which I imagine would not take very long.
Could I ask a quick question? I mean to interrupt, but are the meeting minutes made available prior to them being finalized, approved at the next meeting? Like, when do you make the meeting? You don't? I don't.
No.
Do they not?
I don't know how that works. So technically, could someone come in a week later before they're publicly recorded and change a vote?
Apparently they could.
I guess, they could, right?
No, I don't think so, because like I said, it's the practice is that it happens right after. So that's the long-standing practice that is saved by the MOP provision. You have to stay consistent with that. If you start to do something at this point that is completely inconsistent with what's been happening for 20 years, I think that would not be good.
I'm still asking, excuse me, as a public record, is the Secretary of State required to maintain the handwritten note that Councilor Wheeler provides after the meeting?
These ones, in other
Yes,
words, right?
the paper note. So are you required to maintain?
I think that they'd be required to maintain some record of it. I don't know if it has to be the actual paper, it could be a copy, they could transcribe it or copy it to something else.
Okay.
You do save them? So those are technically on file somewhere? And would they be available like through a 91A request, technically? Even before the minutes were finalized and approved, right? Yep. Is that right?
Yeah, because that becomes kind of a final record once the council uses it. So, whereas the minutes are in draft form, there's other things about the minutes that are still in draft form that I'm sure you work on between the meeting and they're approved at the next time.
I'm getting there,
You're
sorry.
good. Take your
This
time.
is important.
No, I'm thoroughly confused myself.
Okay. Minutes, unlike the Senate log of a vote, minutes of a meeting are a record of what happens during the meeting, not what happens after the meeting. Currently, what happens is that the Secretary of State takes Councilor Wheeler's sheet and actually alters the record to reflect as if he had voted no during the meeting. So my question is that the proper way to record that? Or if we are going to record it, should it be shown separately on that item that Councilor Wheeler submitted a no vote after the item had been approved?
To me, I don't think there's a legal distinction between those two, so I think you could really record them either way.
So is your opinion, your legal opinion, that minutes are a reflection of things that happen both during the meeting and then sometime after the meeting?
I mean, they're a reflection of the vote, right? So if the vote is recorded by handing in the sheet right after the meeting, the minutes reflect.
Or a week after the meeting? We don't know.
No, I think I've answered that question. You may not agree with the answer, but I've answered it.
I don't. I believe that the MOP is very clear that in the event you're silent, then you are acquiescing with the majority. But again, my concern is that the public have notice. And so just to finish up on the minutes of the meeting of February 8th is what we're on, I believe. I just want to make it clear that after the meeting, Councilor Wheeler voted no on items 33, a public health item, on 39, a public health item for home visiting services, on 74 and 75, which are rental assistance programs.
Councilor Stevens, you have
Thank you for speaking with me, Attorney General. So an immediate remedy could be a modification to Law 150, Section 2A, mandating that votes be done in real time, correct?
Yes.
And that could resolve this issue with the council meeting
Yes.
and having a majority vote.
If the council wishes to discontinue this practice, the governor and council can.
Thank you.
Councilor Wheeler.
That's too much comment.
Sure.
So I just take a little bit of umbrage at this practice is new. We want to make it very clear, that this has been available to me in my time at the State House, and I think even the House has a similar practice where you can get up and go down and change your vote, or just make sure your vote is recorded. So my time in the Senate, and this goes back, 34 years, we've been able, this practice has been around in both the Senate, the House, and the Council. So the fact that someone's trying to say the votes are being hidden somehow is just absurd. And also, when right after the meeting, our staff here prepares a report with my votes in it, in writing, that is emailed to the selectmen, the school boards, and anybody else that's on my email list, and shows how I vote on every item. So to just say that someone's trying to hide something is just absolutely absurd. In the Senate, and the House, those things are recorded in the House Journal and the Senate Journal. So it's all public, and it's all available. And I personally want to make sure my no votes and that sometimes yes votes are recorded and emphasized.
Yeah, and just to be fair, I know this is the latest instance that we're discussing as with Councilor, but it has been going back apparently for decades, so it's not just a Councilor issue per se. So let me ask you a question, because so if we took a vote and it was treated, and let's say we had 2 no votes, and it was, let's say, 3-2, and the item, and I say the item passes, and then let's say I assume that a councilor, maybe Councilor Kenny at this point, voted yes, but later he after the meeting says, you know what, that was a no vote. So I publicly recognize that the item has passed. But is it like somebody's going to come tell me, oh, by the way, that item didn't pass? Like, what happens in that situation if this practice leads to an overturning of what has been publicly recognized and affirmed as a passing item?
So there's a couple things there. One is you can't change your vote. So if you voted no or yes, you can't go and change it.
So let's say I say, and the item passes, and we move on. And later, Councilor Kenny says, oh, by the way, my vote was no on that one. But the governor has already said the item passes. So,
Yeah, it's a good question. The conclusion we came to on that is that, again, going back to what is the practice of the council over the years, the chair, the governor, declares whether something passes or fails, and that determines whether it's passed or failed. It's sort of similar to the state senate. You couldn't have 20 senators come in after a voice vote and say no, we actually voted no, that bill didn't pass. But I'm not aware of any instance while this practice is going that has ever happened. This has always happened when we talk to Councilor Wheeler, when they're sure that the item passed, it's a voice vote, they decide to record that vote at the end of the meeting. So it's never arisen, and I think if it did, the answer would be the practice is that the chair's declaration that an item passes or fails is what it says.
we'll bring in the lawyers on that one, right? Because
Those circumstances, the minutes would reflect a no vote by 3 councilors, yet the
Yet the item
item passed.
passes.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about hypotheticals all day, right?
Well, I think it could be a real reality. Now that I know this is happening,
I
I'm
didn't even
here.
know it was I know that there was an option to me that I could hide my vote and then change it later. I don't know.
We're not
Maybe I could start doing that. I
And
couldn't.
the best answer I have to that, Councilor Governor, is that if now, based on everybody being aware of this, us having done the research, come to this legal conclusion that the governor and the councilors don't want this practice, I think, you can change it and make clear that this isn't okay going forward. But it's been a long-standing practice. As far as I know, there's never been an issue with votes getting overturned or anyone claiming that. And so I think, to the extent there is now a concern about that, I think the solution is deferring to you all and your authority to change the law. For us to say a long-standing practice is not legally permissible, when the mob, I think, really makes an effort to defer a long-standing practice, I'm not sure that's the role of the Attorney General and the Attorney General's office.
I would just have to state that the section that you're referring to says, unless otherwise specified in this chapter, current practices, and so on. So it does specify in this chapter. It says, if you remain silent or abstain, you're voting with the majority. I also want to say that in the Senate, which you've referenced, the purpose of this is actually it adds transparency, because in the Senate, they're not recording how everybody votes. They take a voice vote, it just says voice vote passed or failed. Some people may want it on the record how they actually voted, so they're just putting it on the record how they voted. They are not allowed to do it in a committee meeting where there are only 5. They are not allowed to do that. So this is clearly a completely different animal, and of course the Senate can do whatever they want. They can have their own rules. We have our own rules. We do have rules. And it says if you're silent, you voted with the majority. I think this is absolutely wrong, but again, I just want to say, my interest is in transparency.
Councilor Kenny, sorry.
I just wanted to, for full disclosure, I've served in the Senate and the House, now the 8th year of the Executive Council. When I vote, the moment is real time, I vote for that contract or against, I'm voting at that moment in time. I never voted later.
Right.
I just want to clarify.
No, and so I think the idea is, I would recommend either the Attorney General sitting down with council, or let's clarify, do whatever, and you guys can figure it out, whatever practice you want. I'm not going to get involved in the middle of that, but I think the point everyone going forward, it would make, I think everyone's life a lot easier. There was some clarification. So obviously there's interpretation.
And again, to echo, to remedy, the quick, rapid remedy is to not the law. It's important to do it in real time.
Okay.
But because now my legislative mind is kicking in. So if I vote, Attorney General, with the contract 3-2, and it passes early on in the council meeting, and then later on, an hour later, I said, I want to reconsider my vote. Can I do a reconsideration and have that topic brought up and vote no?
When the department heads are gone.
No.
So when I vote at that particular time, it's a finale.
Because you voted, right? This is an instance that I know I get it's confusing. It's not an easy question, and having gone back and looked at the past practice, but this practice involves recording the vote again, right? So you haven't voted and changed your vote. You've not said your vote at the time when you record the vote again. It's different, I think, than voting no and then changing the vote.
So at no point you can ask for a reconsideration on vote earlier.
Motion.
You Yeah,
you can move
you can
or
always
you
move
can
to-
It's all right.
Okay.
But that would be a whole motion to
Right.
reconsider, I understand the practice.
Yeah.
Because, sometimes you look at something and say, wait a minute, maybe I wasn't paying attention, or maybe I interpreted it a certain way, and then you come back.
Okay, well, it sounds clear as the Charles River right there. Well, obviously, I'll let folks take it up. So, we do have a motion and at least, I think, a second on at least the February 8th meeting minutes, and then we'll take up the January 18th one. So, if there's no further discussion, all in favor of the February 8th meeting minutes, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
Councilor Gatzis, are you yay or nay on the approving the February 8th meeting minutes?
I'm okay with them.
Okay, we'll take that as a yay, so those are approved. I'll now ask for a motion.
The alternative, Governor,
Yes.
if I may, Governor, the alternative would be to have a roll call on every single vote.
Yes, and I don't think any of us want that. I mean, we could do it, but boy, that would be, yeah. So I would just really encourage you to take up find some clarification through the month process. I will now ask for a motion to remove the January 18th, 2023 meeting minutes from the table. Can I get a motion to remove them from the table? All in favor of removing from the table, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you, Councilor Gatzis. With that, the meeting minutes are taken off the table. Could I get a motion to approve the January 18th meeting minutes? We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on those meeting minutes? Councilor Warming.
First of all, just a real correction.
Yes.
Under the notice about the filing period will begin on January 23rd for the special election. It should say in there as well, if no primary, then the special election will be on March 28th, 23rd. It doesn't say that, and it should. Also, just for the public knowledge, on January 18th, the minutes have recorded that Councilor Wheeler voted no on item 6, that is to appoint Tina Cabana as Deputy Director of HHS and the Director of Economic and Housing Stability. He also voted no on item 7, to appoint Reuben Hampton, HHS Director of Office of Health Equity. On item 8, to make payment to the town of Hampstead of a payment of $38,000 to address property tax impacts on the purchase of Hampstead Hospital. On item 50, for grant funds to support the local restaurants impacted by COVID, and on item 56, on the request by BEA to support a business support portal.
Thank you. So, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor of approving the January 18th meeting minutes as amended, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. So we have 3 ayes, 2 opposed. With that, it passes. Thank you, Councilor Gatzis. Okay, so exciting meeting minutes discussion. That was the most intense of the 300-year history of the council. So next, from the Office of the Secretary of State, we have our civil commissions. Could I please have a motion to confirm the list of civil commissions? We have a motion and a second. Are there any additional names to place on the list for approval today? Councilor Kenny.
Thank you, Governor. I would like to add Abigail Clinton of Sandwich as a member.
Thank you. Any further names to add to the list of civil commissions? Okay, hearing none, all in favor of the list of civil commissions, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you, Councilor Gatzis. With that, the item is approved, and the matter of civil commissions is concluded. We have 3 resignations to accept today. From the Board of Barbering, Cosmetology, and Aesthetics, could I please have a motion to accept the resignation of Ann Dalton of Manchester?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Councilor Gatzis?
Aye.
Thank you, sir. With that,
Aye.
Yep, thank you. Accepted. As a Justice of the New Hampshire Superior Court, could I have a motion to accept the resignation of Diane Nicolosi of Concord?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Counselor Gatsas?
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. With that, the resignation is accepted. From the Waste Management Council, could I please have a motion to accept the resignation of Don Hammond of Rochester?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? With that, the resignation is accepted, and that concludes our resignations for today. Moving on, we have our confirmations. I'll begin by asking for a motion to confirm Regent Chapney of Hollis to the Board of Licensing for alcohol and other drug use professionals.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Councilor Gatsby?
Aye.
Thank you, sir.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Hearing no opposition, the confirmation is approved. Could I have a motion to confirm Catherine Provencher of Merrimack to the Business Finance Authority Board of Directors?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Councilor
Aye.
Gatsby? Thank you. Any opposed? With that, Catherine is approved. Could I have a motion to confirm Dan Henderson Jr. of Hancock to the Business Finance Authority Board of Directors?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Councilor Gatsby?
Aye.
Thank you, sir. Any opposed? Hearing no opposition, Dan is confirmed. Could I have a motion to confirm Matthew Benson of Concord to the Business Finance Authority Board of Directors?
So moved.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on Matt Benson? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Councilor Gatsby?
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? With that, Mr. Benson's confirmed. Could I have a motion to confirm Jim Buffetti of Litchfield as the Deputy Attorney General for the Department of Justice?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Councilor Gatsby?
Aye.
Thank you, sir. Any opposed? With that, James Buffetti is confirmed. Could I have a motion to confirm Jason Smetic of Goffstown to the Fire Standards and Training Commission?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Councilor Gatsby?
Aye.
Thank you, sir. Any opposed? Hearing no opposition, Jason is confirmed. Could I have a motion to confirm Robert Fields of Manchester to the Fire Standards and Training Commission?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Sorry. Okay, hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Councilor Gatsby?
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? With that, Mr. Fields is confirmed. Could I have a motion to confirm Kim Mooney of Keene to the Higher Education Commission?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Councilor Gatsby?
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? With that, Ms. Mooney is confirmed. Could I have a motion to confirm Amy Manchester of Hudson as a justice on the New Hampshire Circuit Court?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Councilor Gatsby?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Thank you, Councilor Wheeler. With that, Amy Manchester is confirmed. Could I have a motion to confirm Stephen Wingate of Mirror Lake to the Lakes Management Advisory Committee?
Governor, I move the confirmation of Stephen Wingate of Merrill Lake to the Lakes Management Advisory Committee. Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Councilor Gatsby?
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? With that, Mr. Wingate is confirmed. Could I have a motion to confirm Richard Smith of Hancock to the Lakes Management Advisory Committee?
So moved.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Councilor Gatsby?
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? With that, Richard Smith is confirmed. Could I have a motion to confirm Martha Testament of Chichester to the Midwifery Council?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Councilor Gatsas?
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? With that, Martha is confirmed. Could I have a motion to confirm Shave McKinney of Albany to the Oil Fund Disbursement Board?
Governor, I move the confirmation of Shane McKinney of Albany to the Oil Fund Disbursement Board.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Councilor Gatsas?
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? With that, Shane is confirmed. Could I have a motion to confirm Larry Spencer Plymouth to the Rivers Management Advisory Committee?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Councilor Gatsas?
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Hearing no opposition, Mr. Spencer is confirmed. Could I have a motion to confirm Chris Hodgson of Kentucky to the Rivers Management Advisory Committee?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Councilor Gatsas?
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? With that, Mr. Hodgson is confirmed. Could I have a motion to confirm Corey Ritz of New Ipswich to the Rivers Management Advisory Committee?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Councilor Gatsas?
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? With that, Mr. Ritz is confirmed. Could I have a motion to confirm Deborah Ann Albrecht of Conway to the State Radiation Advisory Committee?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Oh, Councilor Gatsas, sorry.
Aye.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Recognizing no opposition, Deborah Ann Albrecht is confirmed. Could I please have a motion to confirm James Tarzia of East Hampstead to the State Radiation Advisory Committee?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Councilor Gatsas?
Aye.
Any opposed? With that, James is confirmed. Could I have a motion to confirm Madeline Jusicki of Pelham to the State Veterans Council?
So motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Councilor Gatsas?
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? With that, Madeline's confirmed. Good to see you. Could I have a motion to confirm Roger Savini of Dover to the State Veterans Council?
So moved.
Governor, I move the confirmation of Roger A. Savini of Dover to the State Veterans Council.
Still doing it. So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Councilor Gatsas?
Aye.
Any opposed? And with that, Roger is confirmed. Wow, that was a list, and that concludes our confirmations for today. I do have a few nominations to read in for the next meeting. Bear with me. To the Air Resources Council, I do nominate David Kribbe of Belmont. To the Advisory Council on Workers' Compensation, I nominate Marion Mitchell of Hooksett. To the Fish and Game Commission, I nominate Jim Titoni of Seabrook. To the Judicial Retirement Plan Board of Trustees, I nominate Crystal Dion of Candia and Deborah Butler of Concord. To the New Hampshire State Council on the Arts, I nominate Catherine Sununu of Exeter. To the New Motor Vehicle Arbitration Board, I nominate William Haynes, Jr. of Center Barnstead. To the Public Water Access Advisory Board, I nominate Sheila Burke of Meredith. To the Site Selection Committee, I nominate Charles DeCurtis of Bradford. And to the Waste Management Council, I nominate Mark Gomez of Concord. And that concludes today's nominations. Moving on to our consent calendar agenda. I'll begin by asking for a motion to adopt the consent calendar agenda.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion or request to remove specific items for further discussion from the consent calendar?
One B just for discussion and 5B.
A request to move items 1B and 5D for further discussion. Any other items? Do we have anybody here from lottery? Is Charlie here from lottery? Could I ask, is anyone see? Oh, hey, how are you? Sorry, I didn't see you back there. Normally Charlie's just back there chatting.
Yes.
Okay. Well, all in favor of the consent calendar agenda, with the exception of items 1B and 5D, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Those items are approved. Could I get a motion to adopt agenda item 1B from the New Hampshire lottery?
Second.
Motion is second. Discussion.
Chairman, I think my question was, should this be retroactive or should it be retroactive?
Should be retro. Okay.
Have to look at that.
What was the thinking, Council?
Excuse me?
What was your thinking as to why we do retro?
I guess maybe it's not unless I saw something on the inside.
Looks like the course begins on the 27th, so I think it's...
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you okay? Okay. So all in favor of item 1B from the consent calendar agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any vote? Councilor Gatsas?
Aye.
Thank you. Item 1B is approved. Now could I get a motion to adopt agenda item 5D?
Second.
Motion and second. Discussion on item 5D from Health and Human Services.
Any other question?
Yep. Commissioner? Or public health item. So, Trish, how are you? Director, good to
Morning.
see you.
Morning, Governor. Good morning, councilors.
So inside the inside information, it's for healthcare and other needed services. Can you tell me what the other category is?
Sure. This item is for Upstate Health. It is providing school-based healthcare services in Manchester. It is a combination of both traditional physical health services, respiratory illnesses, as well as behavioral health services. All services need parental permission to participate. Parents are given notification early on in the process, and they sign off and they give permission to treat.
So just for the record, other would not include the Planned Parenthood that we turned down with Upstate Health?
That is not included.
Thank you. For clarification.
Any further discussions on this item? Okay, hearing none, all in favor of item 5D, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Councilor Gatsby?
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? With that, consent calendar item 5D is approved. That concludes the consent calendar. Moving on to our regular agenda, I'll begin by asking for a motion to adopt agenda items 6 to 10 from the Department of Health and Human Services from the Office of the Commissioner.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on items 6 to 10? Councilor Stevens. Morning, Commissioner.
Good morning, Board Weaver, Commissioner Agent.
Good morning, Commissioner. This involves a YDC staff who was injured in 1227, and the same day the determination was made that the injury was in the line of duty, but the medical evaluation which supported it was not until the following day. It was 1228. So typically, medical determination precedes the sign-off, right?
Typically, yes.
Yeah.
I'm not sure on the timing of that.
What item we're talking about? There's a couple in here. Is this 6?
Item number 6,
Yeah.
right?
6.
Yeah.
Okay. Will we be able to go back and get any additional information from the counselor on the timing of the...
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you want to table the item? Or it doesn't matter to me, but...
Move forward.
Okay.
We'll just
I don't know if it
follow.
will change the outcome, but I think in terms of the question of process,
Yes,
we
it's
can
time
clarify
process.
that.
Great. Okay, any additional questions on anything on 6 through 10? Oh, Counselor, Wilmington.
Off agenda item, Commissioner, I wonder if I've been getting some calls about the $29 million of federal funds for childcare that have not yet been expended by the department, and just wondering if you could give us an update on where we are on that.
Sure, happy to.
So there's 29 million that was appropriated or given, about 21 million remains to be distributed. However, there are, that money is earmarked for multiple different activities. So you will be seeing in the next, probably the next council meeting and several council meeting contracts for that 21 million. So just to be clear, that money was given, there was a lot of stakeholder input determining what that was going to be. From the stakeholders, a plan was created. That plan is on our website, so people will to see the total cost, the breakdown of what it's going for, and that money should be all out by September 30th of this year, not sooner.
And none of that money will need to be returned.
Well, at this point, it looks like all the money is slated to go out, but they wouldn't be able to return.
To be fair, I think there was a lot of misreporting on that, those dollars. You guys did a whole bunch of stakeholder meetings.
Yes.
Dozens.
6 months worth.
Yeah, 6 months of stakeholder meetings on how the dollars should be spent, which I think is the absolute appropriate thing to do. So it'll all be driven based on stakeholder input, which I think is fair. Councilor Stephen.
I think the team has done a great job. We've gotten out $113.5 million in 2 phases. We're now in that 3rd phase. We knew it was a fragile industry pre-pandemic. You did a great job stabilizing the industry and keeping them operational. 486 child care providers received funding. 425 of them were licensed child care centers. You did a great job, and you kept up to 35,000 children safe during the pandemic. And going back to that 29 million, the RFP process, we don't have any say in that with these discretionary dollars, correct? We have to, for the 29 million that we have remaining.
We have 21 million. We have over 21 million remaining. Some of that will be in contracts, so RFPs will be going out, and some of that is what we call like quality funds, that go directly to centers to make improvements.
But the bulk of it has to go through an RFP process. It cannot be released immediately, correct?
No, I'm saying the bulk of it is absolutely accurate. Some of that will be through the RFP process. We'll see those contracts. Some of them will be released directly, like I said, to quality improvements. So that could be staff training, that could be physical plant improvements. So not all of it has to go through the RFP process. What percentage, I couldn't tell you that.
Well, and so the total amount that's gone out is 142 million.
I think that's over since the beginning, so that's in addition to the 29 million.
Okay. Thank you.
A lot of money, yes.
Councilor Kennedy.
Thank you, Governor. Officers, Alderman Bourgeois. We talk about it every week, every day of the week. it seems. So the proof is in the pudding when it comes to stabilization in the last 2 or 3 years and what it's, in essence, has done for the state. So I'm kind of looking at numbers. So you know there's a lot of child care centers that have gone out of business. But do we statistically, have all the licenses, say, whether it be the fiscal year or the calendar year or last year, that kind of indicates where we were, where we are now, what the trend is? Because in talking to healthcare providers, they've always said 2023 was the critical year, because we know child care owners and early learning centers, been under duress, and that's for various reasons, COVID, staffing, and the list goes on. But when I see the proof is in the pudding, statistically, it would be nice to know where we were, what we did during COVID to stabilize it, which I think we did a great job, but where are we going to be this year in reality? Because I hear all the great things, we've done great things, but the devil's in the detail. What is the trend line? Where are we going in the end of this year?
If you're asking us to provide that, we could.
Yeah. I think it's important because I still think child care works in stovepipes because, again, there's no central location where everybody's getting all the information yet. And I know we have the steering committee is doing great work. I know the departments are doing great work. I know there's different associations out there doing great work. John Lowe's was collecting a lot of data on child care. But I think ultimately we need to know what that data is leading us in this calendar year. I think it's going to be a critical year. That was where it's going.
Where we've been, where we're going, from 21 to 22.
Councilwoman.
Just along those lines, can you ever tell us
and businesses, that childcare and housing are the two issues that are stopping them from getting staffing here. They can't even entice people to come here. People won't go back to work because they don't have something for their child to be taken care of. You know, we really are at crisis levels here with respect to housing and childcare. So my question is, I hear these numbers bandied around that there are up to 14,000 children on waiting lists for childcare. Do you have any sense at all of what the numbers are? Do you have any way of tracking that?
Hi, Chris Santinello, Associate Commissioner. We don't track that number because it's done at the center level. So if I'm a parent, right, when I was looking for childcare, I would have my kid on all these lists. So the different centers would say, I have 10 kids waiting, you know, I have 8 kids waiting, but there's not a centralized, because we don't manage the day-to-day operations. We handle the child care scholarship, we handle licensing, but we don't get to the point where we know how many children are waiting. So that number is really subjective. It's duplicated, because you can have a kid on 10 places waiting for that super step center you really want, but you're being served here, and you'd be counted as waiting, so you don't have that.
Big point of frustration. I think the bigger point is, I think folks that understand that are still trying to use false numbers, which just confuses the whole situation. So there is no 14,000 number, and there's no sense. I mean, it could be 2,000, but each kid is on an average of 7 lists. You know, so it's really almost impossible.
And we keep the number of centers that opened and closed, but what's really important is if there's a change of ownership, it closes and reopens. So it counts as a closure and a reopen, but we can provide that for the calendar years for you.
Well, one of the numbers we certainly have, how many, like, state child care spots do we have now? How many do we have then? How many do we have?
Licensed, what they're licensed to have. That doesn't mean that if a center closes a classroom for a week, we may not know that.
Further discussion on any of these items? Okay, all in favor of items 6 through 10, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Councilor Gatsas? Aye. Thank you. Any opposed? Hearing none, those items are approved. I'll ask for a motion to adopt agenda item 11, the Department of Health and Human Services, from the Division of Finance and Procurement.
So moved.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Councilor Kenny.
Thank you. This is in regards to agenda 11. So my understanding is this went through fiscal last week as far as the money that we wanted to take from the federal government for our Medicaid program. But just a couple of questions. I understand that the federal government has extended its emergency timeline for another 90 days with regards to Medicaid.
Well, we're starting with the first, right?
Good morning, Nick, my Chief Financial Officer, DHS. So there's a couple of key dates. So with the December Consolidated Appropriations Act at the federal level, they decoupled the end of the public health emergency from the unwind from the disenrollment process. So we'll begin the disenrollment process April 1, and then the end of the public health emergency right now is scheduled to be May 11.
So my question is, from April to May 11, people that are basically going to be disenrolled at that point, April, so there's going to be some point where we're still going to be under emergency order, but they're not going to receive benefit, Medicaid benefit. Is there a gap in time of a month, April and May?
So they decoupled a lot of those requirements through that legislation in December. But basically, this item before you, we're just going to back up and I'll come back. This is the 6.2 enhancement that we've been receiving for some time. It's a request to accept that. And then beginning that April 1 date for the last quarter of state fiscal year 23, we're going to be receiving 5% additional FMAP, and then come quarter 1 of next year, 2.5, and 1.5 in the second quarter, and then we will receive no more additional enhanced FMAP, and that's the period of time during which a vast majority of those individuals will be disenrolled, but each one will have a right to appeal if they are disenrolled through that process.
Folks will go through a redetermination and a reassessment, right? So they'll stay on the rolls, they'll get to some rolls, and they'll go to the next place.
So there's a way ahead, and everybody knows who's in this program, knows that, yeah, they're going to be up for, determination again at that point, but say we'll push into the department. I just want to know that, by them extending that timeline, it doesn't necessarily put an undue financial burden on the state. If that's not the case.
Well, but part of what they've tried to do through that kind of decreased FMAP is basically project as we disenroll individuals, we'll still receive those additional funds to try to cover the difference. And in the governor's recommended budget, we have sufficient funds planned for that disenrollment process.
Okay.
So one of the things that we were hoping to do with the next breakfast is just be able to provide a little bit more detail on the unwind for those exact questions, because we can only enroll 1 night at a time, and we can only prioritize that disenrollment, so not everyone is getting looked at the same time. It's like a roll.
Okay. Roll. Okay. Thank you.
Additional question? Oh, Councilor Steve.
So we know that there's approximately 73,000 individuals who have not completed their redeterminations at this time. They have been assigned redetermination dates. Could I
Henry Lippman, Medicaid Director. Thank you for the question. Yes.
So that's going to be February 11th. They will be alerted in the scheme of letters that are going out or online, correct?
That's all correct. The notifications have either been to their online account or letters have been sent out so they can find out their date.
So there are two categories, those that may be eligible for the exchange coverage and those that are aging out of Medicaid and who are now eligible for Medicare. So they are getting special treatment as part of this unwanted 19% per month.
Yes, and I think probably doing it justice that what the Commissioner was referring to, but just briefly, the people who are now losing coverage as a result of the end of continuous enrollment will have until July of 24 to enroll in another in the exchange if they're eligible for that. From the time that they qualify, they have 60 days to make their selection of a plan. We're working closely with the insurance department to encourage people to make that election so they don't have a gap in coverage, and so that it works to support good choice in terms of not waiting till you need insurance to buy it. So that's a special one-time event. Medicare is provided as part of, I think, the bill that was passed at the end of the year. Now, going forward, when someone loses Medicaid who ages out, they have a 6-month election period, and so they have an opportunity to get themselves onto Medicare. And so they're basically just trying to provide, some of this is complicated for people to absorb and to back to. They're trying to give Medicare beneficiaries a longer window on a permanent basis.
Thank you.
Further discussion? Okay, hearing no further discussion, all in favor of item 11, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Councilor Gaston? Aye. Thank you. Any opposed? With that, item 11 is approved. I'll now ask for a motion to adopt agenda item 12 from the Department of Health and Human Services in the Division of Medicaid Services. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Councilor Gaston? Aye. Thank you. Any opposed? With that, the item is approved. Could I get a motion to adopt agenda item 13 from the Department of Health and Human Services in the Division of Long-Term Support and Services?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Councilor Gatsas? Aye. Thank you. Any opposed on item 13? Seeing none, the item is approved. Could I get a motion to adopt agenda items 14 through 17 from the Department of Health and Human Services for New Hampshire Hospital?
So moved.
motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Council Gatsas? Aye. Thank you. Any opposed? Hearing none, all those items are approved. Could I get a motion to adopt agenda item 18 from the Department of Health and Human Services from the Division of Economic and Housing Stability?
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? Councilor Warmington.
Commissioner, I want to thank you for holding the meeting that was requested by the mayors around the state to address the homelessness issue. And I'm just wondering if we could hear an update on any new initiatives that will come out of that. I know many of the mayors in my district are pleased to see increased communication, but I'm wondering if there are any new initiatives coming out of that.
Well, I can tell you that the meeting that we had about a month ago, there were some asks for the mayors of the meeting. So one of that was in communication. But there was 3 issues pretty much around data and sharing information. So there was 3 specific requests that within 2 weeks the department had made those changes and sent that response back to the mayor. So we're talking about bed availability, what shelters, what's available in the community. Apparently, some of the municipalities weren't aware of all the contracts that were happening in that area for those types of services. So we provided all of those letters of everything that we had. So an opportunity for everybody to have the same information, operate from the same data sets, as well as the Council on Housing Stability as well. They provide data that's not just our data, but also statewide. So we made that push to be able to get that out to them and then work from there. So we're actually in conversation with them right now about next steps.
And that's going to continue.
I had heard from the majority of the mayors that there was an interest to keep talking and potential results.
Just one of the issues that's been raised with me over and over again is that so many people don't know that you have the availability of respite beds. And some of the shelters are complaining that they're getting discharges of patients after hospitalization, that they really cannot tend to them and try to provide any kind of care. So I just want to make sure that the communication that these respite beds are available is getting out there into the community, and especially to the hospital.
Yes, and that was part of the discussion as well.
Further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor of item 18, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Council Gatsas? Aye. Thank you. Any opposed? Item 18 is approved. Could I get a motion to adopt agenda item 19 from the Department of Health and Human Services from the Division of Public Health Services? Second, thank you. Any questions on item 19? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Council Gatsas? Aye. Thank you. Any opposed? Item 19 is approved. Could I get a motion to adopt agenda item 20 from the Department of Health and Human Services from the Division of Behavioral Health?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor of item 20, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Council Gatsas? Aye. Thank you. Any opposed? Councilor Kenny?
Oh, no, I just have a question.
Okay, well, we'll approve item 20. With that, the item is approved, and I think Councilor Kenny has one last question for
I
you.
didn't want you to get away. So, the adult Medicaid Down program, you passed a contract a couple months ago. Can you tell us the rollout or where that program is? Because we know when it first came out, it was like, wow, this is a great program for 3 years. Now that
Sure, that was more details, right?
Yeah.
Henry, you want to come up with that?
Thank you for the question. So just where we are with it, we're still, I think, on track to get April 1st as the start of the program. We went through, as you know, the procurement where we picked Delta Dental, then to comply with the structure that the legislature passed for the benefit, we needed to apply for a number of waivers. And the reason for that were really twofold. The interest to limit dentures and prosthetic devices to our waiver population and nursing home residents. And so we had to do, amend all our C waivers, apply for an 1115 waiver, and there's also some cost sharing in the program for those above 100%, and we needed to do a couple spots to do that. All that was submitted on time. We're working to get the final sign-offs. We've communicated with upper-level people at CMS about the importance of this. It's been a long time coming. And right now, our key issue is building up the network with Delta Dental. We've had some good things happen in that regard, particularly in oral surgery, which has always been a tough area, but we still have a little more work to do there. There's a national shortage of dentists. There's a shortage of dentists in New Hampshire, so that's our biggest, I think, challenge left. The other thing, too, that is a little bit of a complexity that we're working through is on April 1 is when we begin some disenrollment, and some of the people that may have been in that, we have to work out the communication issues around that. But I think, all things considered, we're doing well to meet that April 1st date.
Where will the public get their information? Will they get it from Delta Dental, from DHHS, or how will that be communicated to the public?
It'll be probably in two fashions. They'll get a notice from the department, and they'll be getting information similar to the managed care program that will get like how to find a provider, what the benefit is. If you want, we can add a piece of that too. That meeting to give you a further briefing on it.
No, I appreciate it, because one of the things we learned many years ago is that we had dentists that supposedly were on a Medicaid list to provide dental services back in the day, and people would call the dentist's office, and they said, no, we don't do that work for Medicaid recipients. And so you mentioned the shortage of dentists. We've got a really credible provider, Delta Dental, but it's still going to be interesting to see who signs on in the dental community. One is they're going to get paid, but two are they providing the service.
So we are working, Delta Dental is working full court press on that, and part of the legislation approved a 22% increase in the fees that existed, and so we are getting some traction. We need to get some more, but I think the other thing that's different now is that we'll have more support in terms of working through people's conditions as to prevention versus something that has immediate health consequence in terms of trying to get them into with a care manager and with a medical director in addition to our dental director. So I think we'll be ultimately better in getting people in because of the program. That still would represent, trying to make a personal dental appointment for a cleaning can take maybe in August. I had one in February, so that's just it's a difficult thing.
Trying to put it down.
Yes.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Great. Okay, so we'll move on for complete our items on services. I'll now ask for motion to adopt agenda items 21 through 32 from the Department of Transportation. Any discussion? Councilor Stevens and then Commissioners here.
Good morning, Commissioner Cass. Your staff has been wonderful, your team has been wonderful. We'll be back to Gasset meetings this fall. So my question is regarding Newcastle. Study began, feasibility study on flooding in 2018. There was one stakeholder meeting. Radio silence after that point, and now the feasibility study came back. And constituents are alarmed about what's being forecasted for 2050. I was very nervous. I appreciate you taking the time to sit down and talk with me afterwards to make this a priority because we will have the bridge between Rye and Newcastle, that faster bridge, will be out of service at some point, and we would have limited traffic flow. So again, I appreciate your time, and I appreciate the time your staff has put into it over the past few days.
Councilor Lewis, you can question?
Yeah, it's kind of a general question. There are some contracts on here for just under $5 million, both all from North Country Paving, and I heard in the wind and trying to confirm that the bidding process in the North Country changed, that some bidders qualified for $5 million and under, and some for $10 million. Is any of that true?
Not quite true. We just advertised, so these are federal resurfacing projects with federal dollars. Usually every February we advertise with state dollars to the district resurfacing, the district maintenance resurfacing program. This year, because of the location of the segments, they're all very, very close to each other, and particularly in District 1. Sometimes we do multiple contracts if there's paving sections for the northern end of District 1, like north of Lancaster and south of Lancaster. We try to group them up for mobilization, things like that. The way the paving segments shook out this year, they were mostly concentrated in and around the Littleton Dalton area, so we only had one North Country resurfacing paving contract. It's a little sizable, it's around $9 million. That's out to bid now, it's not one of these two, it's out advertising, that's one of the district resurfacing. But I know Councilor Kenny had a similar question about why there were only 6 contracts. So there were six maintenance districts, and we have one paving contract per district. And the main reason for that is just the way the segments fell. It didn't make sense to break them up more regionally than that.
Because I'm just getting feedback from some paving contractors that would like to see, projects stay under the $5 million so that they qualify with that size company that they have. And perhaps you should consider that. We might get more competitive bids if we broke those contracts up a little bit.
Right.
So that the smaller companies, $5 million and under, can bid.
Right. We have in the past, we have had smaller contracts, more regionally centric, if it made sense the way the segments of paving fell. But it didn't seem to work out this way. We're also trying to balance staffing to oversee these contracts. Most of the district resurfacing contracts, 5 of the districts are right around, our estimates are right around that $5 million range. District 1, just because of some additional work that's being done there, was a more sizable contract this year.
So just to follow up on that, so District 1, has a sizable contract before us. So can this contract be subcontracted to one of the smaller companies for the work?
They could.
And so in doing that, they actually might do it, they might not, but they would actually get less money than if they put on the contract themselves, which was only $5 million. That's kind of the argument that's out there. Is that a fair argument?
Yeah, I think it depends how much sub work they do. If they could perform subcontractor work on several of those contracts, maybe it would balance out. But, certainly being the prime and having the control of one of the district contracts, I'm sure would be preferable to them.
I'm just thinking that the smaller company might have the workforce, but the larger company is so spread out that obviously we'll go ahead with and sub it out and have them do the work. But again, they can kind of, they can use that as a process because of the level of the project. So, anyways, we talked about this. It's something to consider in the future. We're trying to, constantly make it as competitive as possible, but also give the little guy a chance.
Sure. No, we're very cognizant of that. Like I said, we've had more variety in the contracting in past years. Very curious to see, we start opening bids next week, so we'll see how they come out. It's $5 million is the threshold. I would hope to see, hopefully, one of them could bid in District 3 or District 2. Hopefully they'll bid and be competitive. Right. Thanks.
Further discussion for any of these items from DOT?
Governor?
Yes, Council Gaffney.
I just didn't want the commission to think that out of sight, out of mind, is full rainbow.
I think he's breaking up.
completed.
How's 4A going?
How's 4A going? That's the question. Things are going well. Yeah, construction is continuing all winter. We are beginning right-of-way acquisitions for the next contract, which we're hoping to advertise next spring for next year's construction. So we continue to push things along.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor of items 21 through 32, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Councilor Gatsby?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Any opposed? With that, the items are approved. Thank you. We do have one item, item number 33 from DOIT. That has actually been withdrawn at the request of the department, so there are no DOT items for today. Moving on, I'll ask for a motion to adopt agenda items 34 and 35 from the state treasurer.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on 34 or 35? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Councilor Gatsby?
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? With that, the items are approved. Could I get a motion to adopt agenda item 36 from the Community Development Finance Authority?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on item 36? Councilor Kenny. Director Marte is here. Mr. Marte.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
No, still morning, sorry. Good morning.
Just a real general question. Laconia Area Community Land Trust. What is that, and how is it tied into Lakes Region community developers? Because I'm always thinking of community development block grants for municipalities or for public facility projects. And I gotta believe this is probably a public facilities project. But when I look at Laconia Area Community Land Trust, I'm just trying to disassociate, land from buildings. So can you explain that?
Yeah, absolutely. So this grant is made to the municipalities, sub-granted to Lakes Region Community Developers. They've changed their name to Lakes Region Community Developers for that very purpose. They do mostly affordable housing development. They're a nonprofit, but their previous name as a land trust really didn't depict the work they did. So to sort of ease confusion, they've actually changed their doing business as name, and that's their official name. So we have to include it because they're the subrecipient.
Okay, so the Laconia Area Community Land Trust still exists?
Yes, that was the name that they formed their nonprofit under, but because that name doesn't depict the type of work they do, which is affordable housing development, then they changed their name to Lakes Region Community Development.
So why don't they just erase out their original name and just keep this name?
Not sure.
Not sure.
I think probably because of the history of the nonprofit and wanting to keep that sort of intact would be my guess. So they're doing business as this. But from the Secretary of State, which we checked for validity of the organization as well as bylaws and everything else.
I just don't want to see them go to fellowship and say, we have a natural resource project because we got a great name, called the, Laconia Area Community Land Trust. You want to call it what it is. And can you give us a brief update on the community center grant program and how we're doing?
Absolutely. So we have over 200 people registered for the program workshop on Thursday. So we will be providing additional information about the grant opportunity. And then approximately a month later, on March 23rd, we'll do an application workshop where we can provide detailed information on how to apply for the program. And then the applications will be due on April 21st, and we'll have decisions by May 30th.
And how many interested communities so far?
200 people at the workshop, so we'll see if they remain interested after learning more. We'll hope so.
I did have one other technical question for that program. With the Community Development Block Grant Program, and I know with Northern Borders, there is a commitment that will remain a public facility.
Yes.
Is it the same clause that's going to be in this grant program?
Yes, we are finalizing that guidance, but we expect that they'll need to make a 10-year commitment to maintaining the facility as well.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor of item 36, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Council Gatsas? Council Gatsas, on item 36?
There's
That's
4A questions.
Okay. Any opposed on item 36? Okay, so item 36 is approved, but we'll either try to get him back on the line, or we can, apparently we can, he can vote later. When you get around, let us know. Text it in. Okay. So I'm going to move on and ask for a motion to adopt agenda item 37 of the New Hampshire Council on Development and Disability.
So moved.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on item 37? Hearing no discussion on item 37, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Council Gatsas, are you with us on item 37? Okay, we'll keep trying. Any opposed? Well, with that, the item is approved, and we'll make sure we do record Council Gatsas' vote. I'm going to... He is. He's still on the
Councilor
phone.
Gatsas?
He muted, maybe?
Councilor Gatsas, we can't hear you. You keep going after.
Okay, yeah, we can at least text him. So I'm also going to ask for a motion to adopt agenda item 38 from the Department of Military Affairs and Veteran Services.
Second.
Any discussion on item 38? Here, oh, Council, yes, Council Brown, sure. I think the agenda's here.
You need a little explanation on the numbers here, General. So it says decreasing the price limitation by $562,000 and change from $24,000. How does that work?
So it's a typo.
Oh.
Yeah. Sir, for the record, David Gladys, Adjutant General of the Hampshire National Guards. It's just a typo. So it should be $2,477,904. I think the challenge is later on, it was 10% reduction, so that's why you keep seeing it. So
Any further questions? Okay, seeing none, all in favor of item 38, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Councilor Gatsas, are you with us on 38? Okay, we'll come back to it. But that item is approved. Well, I'll now ask for a motion to adopt agenda item 39 from the Department of Agriculture, Markets, and Food. Please note that item 40 is not being used.
Second.
Any questions on item 39? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Councilor Gatsas, are you here on item 39?
We're still working on that.
Okay. All right, well, with that, the item is approved, and we'll make sure we come back to him for vote on 39. What's that? Yeah. We sure as I can. So I'm going to ask for a motion to adopt agenda items 41 and 42 from the Governor's Office of Emergency Relief and Recovery.
So moved.
Second.
Please note that item 43 isn't used, by the way. Any questions on items 41 and 42 from Gopher? Councilor Stevens. Morning.
Morning. Good morning, Commissioner. Quick question on how we're reappropriating funds. We're doubling the funds from $20,000 to $40,000 under property charges. And in the annual report, property insurance is within that category. And we've only had one person apply for $2,000. The real active program is tax delinquency. So we may have to or have the ability to shuffle those funds again.
So what we're asking for in this item is just to increase the cap that we can use for those purposes for individuals in the program. We're not changing the overall per category. It's just, we do these reviews of New Hampshire housing every couple of months, so this came up as one that we would aid these.
So within budget lines, again, if it's being grossly underutilized, again,
Yes.
Property insurance, one person. But the biggest and most active program is the tax delinquency. That's my concern.
Within that category, there is room, and by increasing the cap, we can make sure that we can accommodate any aberrations that you're seeing in the tax program versus the mortgage program versus the insurance. They're all under that cap.
So this would, all those changes would be within property charges, the default resolution. Great. Thank you.
Further discussion on either of these items? Hearing no further discussion, all in favor of items 41 and 42, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No on 42.
No on 42, thank you. Councilor Gatsas, are you with us for 41 and 42?
He gave it back. I think we're going to try to get him back in.
Okay. Those items are approved, and we'll come back to Councilor Gatsas on those. I'll now ask for a motion to adopt agenda items 44 through 47 from the Department of Business and Economic Affairs. A motion and a second. Any discussion? Councilor Wheeler?
Just a little unclear on 46, what we're finding here.
46 is, which item is that, Councilor?
Contract with Guidehouse Inc. Boston.
Okay, so, yes, so this is under the broadband program. This was all federal funds under the capital project fund that allows us to use a consultant to assist with the regulatory compliance components that are going to come as a result of the contracts.
Do you have a follow-up? Oh, you don't say? Okay, sorry, Councilor Warren.
Item 47. Feedback from our visitors has been great. People are very excited about this expansion of broadband into our rural communities, and I'm very pleased that it's covering Cheshire County. As I'm reading this, it looks like with the vendors on investment that they're not only able to serve the unserved, but they are upgrading service in many communities. Can you elaborate on that?
Right, so the contract awardee under this would be Consolidated Communications. They have dedicated around $15 million of their own resources to put towards the expansion of their existing network in addition to adding unserved, underserved categories that our program will be funding. So the result is obviously a much larger portion of the area, of the unserved area to be served in the state. We had been honestly expecting to see a number of an additional 17 or 18,000 new unserved and underserved locations under this program, but with this contract we'll be seeing almost 25,000 additional. So when you combine that with our round one program, we're right up against 50,000 new locations for the funds that we're putting forward, and that puts us under $2,000 per hookup for the state to get high-speed internet into areas that just don't have it right now. So,
Great. Do you have any sense of how many, after this project, how many unserved locations we'll still have in the state? Is that mapping project that we approved?
yes, so that's underway right now. We expect to have the first maps back on that by the end of this first quarter, so coming out soon. I've heard numbers that it's somewhere in the 70,000 range of unserved and underserved, but I have no way to confirm that, so it's just a really kind of thin air guess right now. But I do think that this number of 50,000 new high-speed internet locations is a substantial component of what has been left of the underserved population.
Thank you. Thank you for this. And also, when that mapping results of report is it available to the public?
Yes.
Thank you.
Sorry. Okay, further discussion? Councilor Stevens, sorry about that.
So I just wanted to ask you very quickly, we are coming in between $1,600 and $2,400 per POGA, correct?
Yes.
Neighboring states, Massachusetts, 9,000, correct?
That's my latest information.
Vermont, 17,000.
Yeah.
17,000?
Well, I heard 5 in Vermont, but that was a couple weeks ago, so I don't know exactly.
Someone cited 17.
It's a lot more than
Great.
So, well done, well done. And I had a question regarding CCI's contribution. They referenced Borough Digital Opportunity Fund, but those are federal dollars for, SEC. So I'm wondering if that is truly their contribution, when these are federal dollars.
Yes, they're making contributions for sure, but they're also using funds that they have received from other programs in addition to this. So together, that is where we get this. But we, as you recall, we talked about having a match at our previous meeting. The amount of money that they're putting in does meet that kind of that.
Just to clarify, this is a fabulous, fabulous program. I didn't know if those federal dollars were to be in the private, but they acquired
We'll take
the funds.
whatever we can get.
Yeah, no, I agree, but we acquired the funds. They acquired the funds. Thank you.
Councilor Kenny.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner, for your staff and for all our work on this item, number 47. Obviously, rural band, our broadband service in the state is critical, and there are going to be literally parties in these small communities. Freedom, Ossipee, and Pittsburgh's getting 1,524 locations. I just wanted to compliment also the county and local broadband coalition, committees that have really acted as advocates, and we're doing a lot of contacting your office and providing data and information on the importance of rural broadband. They often go unnoticed, but I hear from them, and I've gone to their meetings, and they're going to be ecstatic, particularly in Cohos and Carroll and Northern Grafton County about this contract. So, as many of you remember, during COVID, when our kids were at home doing remote learning, or our seniors were pulled out of the senior centers, they all jumped online, but they had nothing to access online because there are two things that happened. They didn't even have service, but there was an overload. So the system was so slow that they couldn't really use the video component of it. This is going to really change it. And my understanding that, what's the speed level capacity for this particular program?
So this program, we require 100 Mbps download and a 20, but scalable is 100 upload. So significantly different. You have a lot of communities that are at 20 and below in both those categories. So it's the speed, but it's also the capacity of fiber network.
So it has the capacity to go up to 100 if CCI decides to provide that service in the future. But one of the things I've learned too is that they're going to start the work this year, but most of the work is going to be done in 2024. Is that right?
I think probably just by the sheer fact of how this all works with the make ready and then get the program running. But we are under the ARPA requirements to have the money spent by the end of 2026. So it is a lot of money. And we want to make sure that it's spent correctly, but it's also spent efficiently and quickly. I know under our first contract with the Federal Co-op, they're already moving along very efficiently. They've hit a number of new locations that they're amping up to be able to do almost 20 miles a day. Our week, I should say, the fiber line site pretty soon once the weather comes in.
And
we're going to move fast.
And one thing about this contract is that they secured a $40 million bond to make sure that the work gets done. Is that correct?
I believe that's the case.
So I think it's a great contract. It's going to have quite a bit of impact on Dolores and most things we normally do.
Further discussion? Okay, all in favor of items 44 through 47, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And Councilor Gassis, are you back on with us?
I'm back on aye.
All right. Thank you, Councilor Gassis. Any opposed? And with that, those items are approved. If you don't mind, Councilor Gatsas, I'll have Kaylee from the Secretary of State's office go back with you just to confirm your votes on the very few items that you missed at the end of the meeting, if that's all right.
That's fine.
Great, thank you. So moving on, I'll ask for a motion to adopt agenda items 48 and 49 from New Hampshire Fish and Game Department.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Councilor Gatsas?
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? With that, those items are approved. Could I get a motion to adopt agenda items 50 through 58 from the Department of Natural and Cultural Resources?
So moved.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Councilor Gatsas?
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Those items are approved. Could I have a motion to adopt agenda items 59 through 72 from the Department of Environmental Services, although please note that item 73 has been withdrawn at the request of the department.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion for DES? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Councilor Gatsas?
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? With that, the items from DES are approved. I'll now ask for a motion to adopt agenda items 74 through 81 from the Department of Education.
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Oh, thank you, sir. Councilor Gatsas, appreciate that. Any questions on items 74 through 81? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Councilor Gatsas?
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? And those items are approved. I'll now ask for a motion to adopt agenda item 82 from Police Standards and Training Council.
Second.
Motion and second. Any questions on item 82? Looks like the director has something he'd like to say. Morning or afternoon, Director Hoyt.
Good afternoon, sir. If it pleases the governor and council, I'd just like to make oral amendment to the explanation within our document. We use some placeholders in drafting, and we can change it. The purpose of this subgrant is to establish a statewide law enforcement accreditation program. The governor established the New Hampshire Law Enforcement Accreditation Commission through executive order. It's written in the explanation that it's the New Hampshire Association of Chiefs of Police, and that is not accurate. In the last sentence of the second paragraph under explanation, it suggests that the person that we'd like to engage to oversee this program would be reporting to the Association of Chiefs of Police, and that is not correct. In fact, they would be reporting to the New Hampshire Law Enforcement Accreditation Commission, which has been signed through executive order to be attached to the police standards.
Okay. No, appreciate that. Any questions on that? Okay, so all in favor of item 82, noted with the noted amended explanation as provided by the director, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Councilor Gatsas?
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? With that, the item is approved. Councilor Kenny, do you have a question?
Just for our, for the minutes and the record, everything that was just stated is going to be in the minutes.
Is it me too? Just clarifying a typo within the explanation of the contract. Do all those details of that need to be?
It doesn't need to be in the minutes, but it could be, given that you sort of
Okay,
made
well,
the explanation.
Director, if you don't mind typing that up.
Absolutely.
And then if you provide it to the Secretary of State, then we'll put it into the record.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
That way you don't get this panic. Okay, I'm going to ask for a motion to adopt agenda items 83 through 93A from the Department of Safety.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay. All right, no discussion. All in favor of items 83 through 93A, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Councilor Gatsas? Aye. Thank you. Any opposed? Hearing none, all, yeah, they're all good, sorry. All the ayes are approved. Oh, that's something else I placed there. Could I get a motion to adopt agenda items 94 through 99 for the Department of Justice?
So moved.
Is there a second? Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Gatsas, appreciate that. Any questions on items 94 through 99? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Councilor Gatsas?
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Hearing no opposition, those items are approved. Could I get a motion to adopt agenda items 100 through 109 from the Department of Administrative Services? Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion for DAS? Councilor Wheeler.
Item 107.
107, spreader parks.
It sounds like we're kind of wading through commodity land here, which is moving to the mod, I think. But how do you get that bid? Do they give you a price list and say, spinner is this, a track is that?
So if you look at the item itself, after the letter on page 3, there's a bid list. And so that's typically what we do. Typically with the contract, with most commodity contracts, what we would do is we would identify the items the state uses the most. So sometimes that's, the top 15 items, sometimes the top 80. And the bid's based on that with the balance of total price.
And I guess the reason I'm inquiring is because we only got one compliant bidder. And like with Fisher, for instance, equipment, there's several other dealers, and I found Fairfield to be the most expensive in the state. So I'm trying to figure out why we ended up with only one bid. Could we do this better? Is it because we got to put them through all this work of pricing out everything, or?
I think it's possible. I mean, typically there are a lot of people who don't like to bid state contracts. And there are a lot of people who do like to bid state contracts. And so, we spend a lot of time trying to get extra people to bid. But there are a lot of things, particularly if there's an incumbent on a commodity contract with and I think this is mostly the DOT. And so there's somebody who has a relationship, and I'm speculating, but there's often the case where other people are like, well, you know what, they've got the contract, I'm not going to get it, and they don't bother. But we source bids routinely and try to get companies to bid.
Okay, well, I just wanted to point it out because maybe we can do better here and try to get more bids somehow. I don't know what the answer is, but I'm pointing it out.
On most of our commodities, one of the things that we've done over the last few years, since Gary Winnetka took over procurement, is at a minimum on every contract we direct source. We don't just send it out to the people with the NIGP codes, but we actually reach out to people that we think would bid and ask them to bid as well, to make sure that they're aware this is out there, they're so you're aware, and so just to try to get more bids in. But it doesn't always work.
Councilor Stevens.
In regards to agenda item 102, our digital budget right now is just about $500 a month for Indeed. And with that, we are focusing on one position for 5 days and cycling.
Actually, can I have Cassie come up too? That was me saying stupid things. She can actually answer questions. Smart questions on time. Not those consistent things.
So the digital budget at this time is $500 a month for Indeed, and one position is promoted along with others, but really heightened for 5 days. So we're really pushing only 4 positions a month. So this has to happen. I so I fully support this, but at this rate, we're only able to recruit about 200, or promote 224 jobs in a year.
So you're right, it's the reason. For the record, my name is Catherine Keene. I'm the Deputy Commissioner of Department of Administrative Services. Good morning, everybody. You're absolutely correct, Councilor Stevens. We've been operating on a shoestring budget, so we have $500 in that budget to post today on Indeed, and we do it position by position. We can only post one position at a time because you need staff people to work the position, and so that's why we have one person, one position. What we're going to do with this item is we're asking for the permission to hire another individual and for funding to get on more platforms, and we're going to dedicate that new person to those platforms. And they're platforms that we're all familiar with, but we don't currently use today, like LinkedIn, like Indeed is one of them. We want an enhanced presence. There's something called Handshake that is for people who are right out of college. They tend to use it. So we need to be where the applicants are and having a state of New Hampshire presence and promoting our jobs.
Step in the right direction.
Thank you.
Any further discussion for Department of Administrative Services? Hearing none, all in favor of items 100 to 109, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Councilor Gassis?
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? With that, those items are approved, and that concludes our regular agenda for the day. Well, thank you for, sorry, Councilor Kenny?
Just that, many of you who have served in the state government over the years have heard a familiar name, and a name that's a very meaningful name, Ed Dupont, who served as a state senator for the state of New Hampshire, obviously a long-time lobbyist, Rochester guy, ran an oil company, passed away in Durham just recently, and I just want to memorialize this meeting to really remember his service to the state. Ed was a one-of-a-kind, always confident, always had the answers, and always conscientious about his work, and he did great work for the state of New Hampshire, so I just wanted to recognize Ed.
Oh, thank you very much. He's great. A lot of time in this room. That's for sure.
He was.
He was a senator. He was a senator.
Yeah, and Steve Merrill.
Yeah. You ran against Steve Merrill?
Yeah, from Friday.
Well, I don't even, before my time. Okay, so that concludes this regular meeting. Again, I'll have Keely, I'll have you follow up with Councilor Gassis. Thank you for joining us.